Right, now, halving inflation, grow the economy, lower national debt, shorten NHS waiting times and, probably most importantly for some, stop asylum seekers crossing the Channel on small boats. Those were all the 5 pledges made by the Prime Minister last January.
And today, again, we're seeing talk of spring tax cuts, including ditching the inheritance tax to appeal to voters.
So, when looking back at Rishi's 5 pledges from earlier this year, how many of them has he achieved? Olivia Utley tells us more. She's live.
I want to make 5 promises to you today. 5 pledges to deliver peace of mind. 5 foundations on which to build a better future for our children and grandchildren.
When Rishi Sunak laid out his 5 pledges in a speech to journalists back in January, it was widely believed in Westminster that he was being unambitious. But 12 months on, and the goals to halve inflation, grow the economy, cut national debt, cut NHS waiting lists and stop the boats remain, to a varying extent, unfulfilled. As pledged, inflation has halved this year from a high of 10.7% at the end of last year to around 4% now. But that's the end of the unalloyed good news. Despite Jeremy Hunt's Get Back to Work spring budget, the economy has stubbornly failed to grow. For most of the year, growth has hovered around the 0 mark, meaning we are permanently teetering on the edge of a recession. And there's bad news in the national debt quarter too. Far from falling, economists now suggest that debt is skyrocketing, and the OBR has said that the current trajectory is unsustainable. Meanwhile, NHS waiting lists reached an all-time high of an eye-watering 7.7 million last month, and with demand back to pre-pandemic levels, they don't look set to shrink anytime soon. To compound the problem, NHS nurses and doctors have been striking on and off all year, and doctors at least look set to continue well into 2024. As for stopping the boats, polls suggest that the public believe Sunak has failed on this pledge too. Though that may be a little unfair, the data shows that there's actually been a 30% drop in crossings this year compared to last. It is perhaps hardly a surprising view.
Friend, on that point on foreign courts...
The Conservative Party is in civil war mode over the Rwanda scheme, which looks set to be bogged down in Parliament for many months to come. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer is coming up with his own solutions.
The government's lost control of our borders. I think the way to stop the boats is to smash the criminal gangs that are running the vile trade of putting people in the boats in the first place.
At the start of the year, the Prime Minister asked us to judge him purely on how he delivered on his 5 key pledges. He cleverly gave himself some wiggle room in the run-up to the general election. With the exception of halving inflation, he deliberately didn't set any deadlines. But 12 months on, and with popularity ratings at an all-time low, Sunak is all too aware that time is fast running out. Olivia Utley, GB News.
Joining us now in the studio is one man hoping to capitalise on any potential Tory collapse, Deputy Leader of Reform UK Ben Habib.
Good morning.
Ben,
Good morning.
5 pledges at the start of the year.
Yeah.
Can we not give Rishi half a point for halving the number of boat crossings across the Channel?
Has he halved them? Is it half? I think he's brought them down quite considerably. Yes, absolutely. And I'd be the first to admit when Rishi's got something right. And he has reduced the number of illegal crossings of the Channel, but that is principally due to identifying the Albanians as being a significant part of the problem. And Albania, of course,
could be weather-related as well.
It could be weather. People are saying that we've had worse weather this year than in the past. I don't watch the charts as avidly as some do, clearly. But, you know, there was a significant amount of people coming across in 2022 who were Albanian from a safe country to the United Kingdom who obviously should have been returned. And he has now got that returns agreement, not without cost, with Albania. But he still hasn't really grasped the problem of the illegal crossings of the Channel. You know, just like his fellow European Union member state governments haven't grasped the problem. Meloni, for all the talk that she had in order to get elected, hasn't really stopped the boats coming into Italy.
But is the biggest problem when it comes to how voters will vote?
I think it's a very visual example of how our government is failing to protect and promote the interests of the United Kingdom. As Keir Starmer said, it made me laugh when Keir Starmer said the government's lost control of our borders, because, of course, it was his predecessor, his mentor, but Tony Blair, who effectively opened the border, the United Kingdom's borders to unbridled migration. But it's very, very visual, isn't it? We all know that the nation-state that is the United Kingdom is threatened. We've lost control of our borders. We have a progressive socialist system that doesn't recognise recognise British culture, British values, British language. Our history is constantly being trashed. Our economy is in trouble. We promote the interests of migrants, legal migrants I'm talking about, over and above and to the detriment of the indigenous working population. All these are symptoms of the United Kingdom failing as a nation state. But the most visual example is illegal crossings of the Channel.
And, of course, the one thing that the Tories can manage and can control, legal migration, is also, some would argue, spiralling completely out of control.
Completely.
A city the size of Birmingham over the past 2 years.
Yes, and, you know, Olivia kind of said it. You know, the second, just talking about the economy for a second, second quarter, we were initially told that the economy had grown by 0.1%, and in the third quarter we told it had been flatlined, but they've revised those numbers to 0% growth in the second quarter, a mild regression in the economy in the third quarter, and per capita, which is the key point, per capita or per hour worked, we're all getting poorer because it's the migration that's holding up, ostensibly, this figure of GDP. So in real terms, in dollar terms per capita, the United Kingdom is getting poorer quite fast. And when one of his 5 pledges, growing the economy, well, he's demonstrably failed in that. Getting debt under control. No government, by the way, has ever reduced the national debt. No government in office has ever reduced national debt. The only way you control national debt is by growing the economy,
but
so
Ben,
that as a proportion of that.
If Rishi Sunak had done something right, would you admit it? Because it does sound, well, it does sound like you are on, and I'm not saying this is wrong, I'm just putting it to you, are you on a mission to obliterate the Tory party?
I am on a mission to obliterate the Tory party, but not because I've got anything against the Conservative Party. It's because the parliamentarians that represent the Conservative Party have taken this country to the point of existential evaporation. That's where we are. Suella Braverman made a fantastic speech in Washington where she identified the problem. Of course, she was talking about migration, but the problem is manifold. It's in every aspect of our existence, including, pertinently and very importantly, the economy. And you know, when you look at what Rishi Sunak says, he's got no vision for the United Kingdom. What we desperately need is economic growth. And you don't get economic growth through unbridled migration. That might appear to hold up GDP, but GDP per capita reduces, and you create all sorts of other strains in the economy.
We need migration because we've got a lot of vacancies.
Yeah, we've got a lot of vacancies, but we've got 6 million people in this country, 3 million before the pandemic, before lockdowns, 6 million now, to a greater or less extent on universal credit. We've got a broken labour market. The priority of the government should be getting British citizens back into the workplace. And at the heart of that problem is an overtaxation of the working and middle classes. And that's got to be the priority tax to cut. Tax on working class, not inheritance tax, by the way.
How many seats will you be standing in against the Tories at what could be a spring election?
630 seats. We've already got 440-odd candidates lined up. We will be ready to stand right across Great Britain. We're not targeting Northern Ireland because actually we don't have any Conservative or Labour representation in Northern Ireland, which is one of the issues that Northern Ireland suffers with. And we see the DUP, TUV and UUP as our friends, as unionist friends of Reform UK.
Ben, so some would say you need to do what the Brexit Party did in 2019 and step aside to ensure a Tory victory, because otherwise you'll be handing the keys to Keir Starmer.
If you vote Tory and you get another Tory government, you're going to get Labour policies. All we've had under 13 years of ostensibly Conservative governance is Labour policies. We have all the symptoms of progressive socialism gone wrong. National debt out of control, taxation out of control, an economy that isn't growing, people getting poorer, a broken labour force. Can I just finish? Broken public services.
Power, though, are you?
We are going to get seats. It's not sufficient
well,
for reform.
got 4 million votes in 2015 with 1 seat. What's changed from that? We're still using the first past the post.
As bad as things were in 2015, as much as people recognised the need for Brexit, for the United Kingdom to leave the EU in 2015, things now are immeasurably worse. The population is incredibly febrile. They are irritated. It's a mild way of putting it. I can't say what I would want to say on daytime television. They are irritated to the point of, you know, not homicidal tendencies, but you know what I mean, with the Conservative government. And they recognise, people aren't stupid, they recognise how damaging the Tories have been and how more damaging Labour would be. And the only challenge Reform UK faces, it's not a policy challenge, it's not a have we got the right people challenge. The challenge we face is getting our name out to the reaches of Great Britain. If we can achieve that, if people know we exist, they will vote for us because they are sick and tired of what's been happening to the country. And the vast majority of people in this country are small C Conservative. Even those who vote Labour are small C Conservative. They want to see national interests being promoted. They want policies, legislation, regulations that promote British citizens and the national interest. They don't want to be governed through supranational institutions, which is the obsession of this government, or through so-called independent bodies that they keep setting up and stripping away power from the democratic.
They want that, because all the proof will be in how you do at the election.
It will, yeah.
And very finally, are you attracted by a pint of wine?
I was looking
Brexit
at that.
Benefit?
I mean, of all the benefits that Brexit offered, that's not the one that would have been at the top of my list. I mean, I actually don't know what I pour myself when I pour a glass of wine. It has to be full, though. I'm not for half glasses. I think if you're going to have a glass of wine, fill the wretched thing up to the top.
I think it was Churchill who famously championed the pint of wine. He said a full bottle
of champagne, I think it was,
a full bottle's too much, half a bottle's too little, so a pint is just right.
Good man.
All right, Ben Habib, Deputy Leader of Reform UK.
Thank you
so much.